Welcome back to Likras, to our work in Hasidus, trying to understand the Torah, the approach that was taught by leading Hasidic rabbis. It's meant to give us an appreciation of the Torah, to look at classic Torah ideas, giving us a second look at the scripture itself, as we discussed really in the introduction. Today we're going to be focusing on psukim, the verses in chapter 7 in Parshat Vaera, this week's Parshat Vaera. We're in Perek Zayin. We're going to start talking about the Makkah of Dam. The first Makkah, the first plague was blood. In Egypt, there were 10 plagues. The first plague was blood. All the water in Egypt turned to blood. They need water to drink. They have how it's going to work out for them. We're going to review more than one verse to see what happens. We're working with the Maor Vashemesh on this. So he starts, verse says, thus states God. That's how every prophet speaks. So it's a prophecy. It's being told to Paro, the king of Egypt, first. And the language is being spoken by Moshe. Moshe's the prophet. He's the messenger. He's the one sent to speak to the king of Egypt, Moses. So he says, I am going to hit with the stick which is in my hand on the water. Seems to be very explicit, exactly what's going to happen. As we look at the psukim continue, the verse is saying further, there's another verse comes up, and it says that God tells Moses, tell Aaron that he should take your stick. Moses speaks to his brother Aaron. Take your stick, and you, Aaron, will hit with your hand on the waters of Egypt. So we just changed subject. Who's doing the hitting? We started off clearly it's Moses, and then we switched, and now it's not Moses anymore, it's his brother Aaron. Moshe va'Aaron. And then the pasuk says that they both, Moses and Aaron, did what they were supposed to do. It's ambiguous. What's happening? Who's doing things here? So that's the issue that the Rebbe raises. Try to understand these verses. Who is actually doing? What's happening? Who's supposed to do this? Now, Rashi tells us, Rashi, the classic commentator, says there's a reason why we need Aaron over here. It should be Aaron. Why? Because Moses was rescued by the water of the Nile River. What happened? Moses was a baby, and there was a decree that all the children have to be killed. And Moses was put in a boat, a very small boat for a baby, and he was rescued, and the water saved him. So it can't be that Moses is the one to turn the water into blood, for the water rescued him. That's what Rashi says. So, therefore, if that's a reason, so it seems like Moshe's just, and it's not true. It's that if he's told he's taking the stick, he's not allowed to. He's the wrong person. So this is all very confusing what exactly is happening. We find this language is slightly different in other of the plagues, so that also makes for a question over here. What exactly is going on? What exactly is happening? So if we look very, very closely at the words of the Torah, so the Maor Vashemesh tells us that it says, I'm going to hit, Moses says, I'm going to hit with the stick which is in my hand. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that he's going to hit the water. It means he's going to bring the plague of blood on the water. But how? Through Aaron. He's going to be holding a stick. And it's going to be through Aaron, his brother, he's the one who's going to raise his hand. So it comes out there's two. Moshe's supposed to hit with the stick, and Aaron's going to be holding a stick without hitting. And the two together, that's what's going to do the Makkah. And then if we look very carefully, that explains all the verses. That Aaron's told, take your stick, and take means, the word take, a very important word in the Lashon, in the language of the Torah. The word take, kach, implies the physical taking, a simpler translation, but it implies much more. It implies a connection, implies a deeper connection. So, taking something, we find, the Torah says in Parshat Terumah coming up, that it says, "V'yichu li truma." The same verb, take for me a truma, means take something and set it aside. The word take implies that you set aside for other. So that's really all Aaron's job is. Aaron's job is to have a stick and hold it. Set it aside. Don't do anything with the stick. And Moshe is the one who's going to make it happen with Moshe's stick. There's going to be two sticks. One's active and one's passive. And together, that's what's going to bring both of them together. And that's, in fact, exactly what the verses say, both of them together. So now we understand all the verses. We understand that Moses says to the king of Egypt he's going to do the plague, which he does with his stick. We understand Aaron's meant to hold his stick also. We understand that Moses by himself is not able to do it because he was rescued. We understand also that the verse says they acted together, both brothers, that they both have a role to do. There's a more active role and a more passive role, and Aaron is leading with a more passive role. And sometimes we find that it seems, it's maybe perhaps counterintuitive, the more passive is really the more active. The one who's holding the stick and not hitting with it, Aaron, is really causing the makkah more. Why? Because that type of action shows you need God. You're acting in a passive way. You're holding the stick. You're not hitting anything, and you relate that you have a command that's going to make something happen. It's going to make the plague of blood start. So that means that passivity is connected to something that's hidden. That's what it means. You're holding a stick and doing nothing. The holding a stick and doing nothing is the biggest doing. It's showing that there's a hidden force at work. That's really all throughout our lives. There's a hidden force at work. That's what it means, the spiritual side of the world. There's a hidden force at work. So if we see the two are acting, Moses is acting in some way, and really Aaron, his brother, together is doing more acting, and he's doing it in a hidden way. He holds the stick and doesn't hit anything. Just take the stick. Just set it aside for this purpose. That there's a hidden force acting, that's really teaching us that there's a spiritual side to the world that's giving us focus, and it's an important idea when we live our lives to remember that there's a spiritual side, there's a hidden force working, and we have to set ourselves aside, as it were, kach, like Aaron is told, in order to be aware and live with that reality. There's a spiritual hidden side at work.